Pennsylvania, 1978. Not far from Gettysburg's haunted hills, where the past bleeds into the present, there's a road that isn't on any map. Locals speak of it in hushed tones, if at all. They call it cursed. Others say it only exists when it wants to be found. At midnight, when the veil is thin and the living can hear the dead breathe. Mason Cross, a veteran long-haul trucker, had crossed nearly every inch of America's highways. He didn't scare easily. He'd seen fog roll in like ghosts, driven through storms that made grown men cry. But nothing in his years behind the wheel prepared him for what he found that night. It started with the static. His radio crackled into silence. The temperature inside his cab plummeted. Then the road beneath him, smooth and familiar, shifted. It grew older, cracked and broken like skin stretched too far. On either side, dense woods pressed in unnaturally close. No wildlife, no stars, just a creeping fog that swallowed his headlights. And then he saw it. A rusted sign with no words, only a jagged arrow pointing left. A road he had never seen before. A road that hadn't been there seconds ago. When Mason looked back, the highway had vanished. He was alone, with the road that only appears at midnight. Mason's hands trembled slightly on the steering wheel, a reaction he hadn't felt since his first blizzard crossing in Wyoming. He told himself it was just the cold, maybe exhaustion. But something deep in his chest said otherwise, something primal. He turned onto the road. The tires groaned as they left the known world behind. The pavement was uneven, too narrow for a proper highway. Tall, skeletal trees loomed on both sides, arching inward like ribs, forming a tunnel of branches that blocked out the moonlight. There were no lights, no signs, no wind. Just the rhythmic thump of his tires over cracks and the soft hum of something breathing in the woods. Then the fog got thicker, not the kind that rolls in. This fog clung to the windshield like hands pressing from the outside. Mason turned on the wipers, but they smeared it into strange patterns. Faces, maybe. Open mouths. Hollow eyes. He shook his head. "Stay awake," he muttered. "Don't lose it." But the truck's headlights began to dim, like something was draining them. And then he saw her, a woman, standing motionless on the side of the road, drenched, pale. Her eyes locked on his, her mouth slowly opened as he passed, and though no sound escaped, Mason heard her scream inside his skull, long and piercing. He slammed the brakes, skidded sideways. When he looked back, she was gone, but in her place was a door. A door standing upright in the middle of the road, not attached to anything, just waiting. It creaked open on its own. Mason's radio, though dead moments before, crackled once more. A voice, distorted and childlike, whispered, "You turned left. You always turn left. Welcome back, Mason." His blood ran cold. No one, not a soul alive, should have known his name. The voice on the radio faded into a hiss. Mason sat frozen, eyes fixed on the door, standing impossibly in the road. His breath clouded the glass, the fog creeping inside now, curling around his boots like smoke rising from a grave. He threw the truck into reverse. The wheels spun uselessly. The asphalt beneath him had turned soft like flesh. Panicking, Mason jumped out of the cab, boots landing with a sickening squelch. The ground pulsated as if the road itself was breathing beneath him. The trees, once motionless, now creaked and twisted in unnatural ways, their bark splitting to reveal something dark and wet beneath. A sound echoed through the woods, not an animal, not human. A dragging, gurgling moan that came from every direction at once. Then came the laughter. Children. A sound echoed through the woods, not an animal, not human. A dragging, gurgling moan that came from every direction at once. Then came the laughter. Children, laughing in the darkness, giggling, gasping. Mason spun in circles, heart hammering, flashlight shaking in his grip. Just beyond the trees, barely visible in the mist, he saw them. Figures, small, dozens, all standing still, watching. Children, but wrong. Their eyes were empty, mouths stretched too wide, their skin the color of rot. One stepped forward, neck twitching sideways as if it were broken. He whispered, "You left us, Mason." Mason stumbled backward, crashing into the open door that hadn't been there seconds ago. But now it stood tall behind him, open wide, and through it he saw something impossible. Not more trees, but his bedroom as it was when he was 8 years old, and in the bed was himself, a child version of Mason lying still, eyes wide open, tears on his face, mouth silently forming the word, "Help." The whispers grew louder, the children began to chant, the ground convulsed. He turned to run back to the truck, but it was gone. Only the door remained, and it was closing. Mason lunged forward, diving through the door just before it slammed shut behind him. He hit the floor hard, wooden planks, not pavement. Dust burst into the air with every breath. He was no longer on the road. He was inside the memory. The room was a near-perfect replica of his childhood bedroom, except the colors were faded, like an old photograph left too long in the sun. Toys sat untouched on dusty shelves. A small fan spun slowly in the corner, though no air moved. In the bed, the child version of Mason lay trembling, eyes locked on the mirror across the room. Mason followed the boy's gaze. The mirror didn't reflect the room. It reflected a hospital hallway. Flickering lights, blood on the tiles, a figure standing at the end, just out of focus. As Mason approached, the child in the bed whispered, "Don't look at it. If you see it, it sees you." But it was too late. Mason's eyes locked onto the mirror. The figure inside the hallway raised its head. It had his face, older, twisted, eyes black as coal, a grotesque smile stretching far too wide. And then it moved, not in the mirror, out of it. The glass rippled like water as the figure stepped forward into the room, dragging something behind it. A chain, a body. The air grew heavy, thick with the stench of mildew and rot. Mason shielded the boy behind him, heart pounding. "What the hell are you?" he shouted. The creature smiled wider, speaking in his exact voice. "I'm the road you chose. I'm what you left buried, and now I'm the one driving." The lights burst above them, darkness swallowed the room, and when Mason opened his eyes again, he was back in the truck, behind the wheel. Engine running, headlights flickering, but something was wrong. His hands were still on the wheel, only they weren't his anymore. Mason stared at his hands. They were pale, stretched and veined with black, not his. They gripped the steering wheel with unnatural strength, knuckles cracked and swollen. He tried to let go, to scream, to move, but his body no longer obeyed. Something else was driving. Outside the windshield, the road had changed again. No longer the cracked asphalt or the tunnel of trees. Now, it was a stretch of endless black, with no sky above, no ground below, just the road, suspended in nothingness. Street signs flashed by, each with a different word carved in rusted metal. Regret, guilt, abandonment, murder. The whispers returned, louder, now full of accusations. "You left her there, Mason. You locked the door and ran. She burned while you watched. She was your sister." Mason's mind recoiled. He tried to block them out, but the memories poured in like blood through a broken dam. A fire, a small girl, Evelyn, his baby sister, trapped in a room he couldn't open, or wouldn't. His reflection in the rearview mirror morphed, his face twisted into a grotesque mask, mouth wide with a scream that never came. Then came the final sign, a large wooden board, nailed crooked into the void, carved into it. End of the road. The truck jerked violently. The road was ending, splitting apart, pieces falling into the abyss. And ahead stood the same door, but this time it was burning. From the flames, a child's hand reached out, small, charred, waiting. "Come back for me, Mason." For the first time in decades, Mason cried. His tears steamed as they hit the dashboard. The engine roared louder, the void pulling everything inward. With the last of his will, he whispered, "I'm sorry." And then the door opened. From the inside, flames poured into the cab. The truck vanished into the darkness, swallowed whole by the road that never should have been.